You're listening to a Pop House Network podcast for developers by developers.
OffHeap episode 58. Hey everyone, this is Freddie Gime, one of the co-hosts here at the Java OffHeap podcast. Principal engineer at Expedia, author, speaker, Seattle Java User Group co-organizer, and I'm here with my usual suspects in another first podcast of the year.
Hey everybody, welcome to 2021. This is Bob Paulin, independent software engineer from Chicago, Apache Software Foundation member, Java champion, speaker, and CJUG board chair for another year.
Yeah.
My name is Josh Juno. Chicago area. I am a board member of Chicago JUG. I'm an application developer, system analyst, and database administrator by day. I do open source development and authoring by night.
Hey everyone, Michael Manella, member of the Spring Engineering team at VMware, author, speaker, Java champion, curmudgeon at large.
All right. And this episode is brought to us by Datadog. Today's show is sponsored by Datadog, a monitoring and analytics platform that integrates with over 400 technologies, including AWS services, Docker, and Kubernetes. Datadog's platforms brings together metrics, traces, and logs in one place, so you can get full visibility into your environment and improve your application performance. With machine learning-based alert, customizable dashboards, and distributed tracing, Datadog makes it easy to unify disparate data sources so you can troubleshoot faster. Start your free Datadog trial today. Listeners of this podcast will receive a free t-shirt once you install the agent and create one dashboard. Visit at javaoffheap.com/Datadog to get started. Again, the URL is javaoffheap.com/Datadog. And we thank them for sponsoring our podcast, for keeping our mics hot and recording, and keeping our beer cold. So give them a shot.
Yep. Cheers, everybody, to 2021.
Yes, we did it.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. Make it a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not 2020 2.0.
Well, it's
Let's
already
hope
going.
not.
It's already going well. Like the day we're recording was the inauguration, and
In the United States, yeah.
it was a slow news day. Like the
Yeah.
new president was elected or was not as inaugurated, and that was it. Like that was what was supposed to happen.
Yeah, right. like I was so it was one of those where I was so afraid that I'm gonna wake up to like chaos. Like, because I'm on the West Coast, and by the time I wake up and do my exercise and decide to doom scroll, it's usually like either President Biden is inaugurated, or we're done with democracy in the U.S. Like that was it. Those were the only two choices. So I'm glad that today is a slow news day. So.
Yeah, no, I mean, Mike, it was kind of weird. Like I never actually remember watching inaugurations in school. I actually watched it on TV, during my lunchtime. But I heard like from my sister-in-law, some of the schools were not going to like let the kids watch it. And it's like, I don't actually remember watching it in school, but I also never actually remember anyone saying we couldn't. So it was a little bit weird, but people were worried things were going to happen. But again, slow news day, everything went off without a hitch. It was actually, having never watched an inauguration before, it was actually kind of a good ceremony. I mean, it was a moving, very patriotic thing. So
That's refreshing.
Yes, it was refreshing, but something to keep in mind for the future. Just, hey, maybe I should be watching these things.
Yep.
Yeah, we usually watch it at our house. And actually, the reason I was running a couple minutes late tonight was we were reviewing it with Addison.
Yeah.
So my daughter.
That's
So
good.
she got to see the first female vice president inaugurated, and she was all excited about that. And the one thing that I found interesting, having watched a number of these over the years, like I watched both of Obama, I watched a couple of, at least the second Clinton and so
Mhm.
forth. I never noticed the difference in the the oaths that the two people take. So the vice president one, there's a clause at the end about do you do this willingly with a free mind and blah blah blah. That's not in the presidential one. It's only in the vice presidential one. Like, are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah. No one's twisting your arm.
He signed up for it. You?
That's funny. It's like, are you sure? Are you really, really sure? It's a lot of work.
Yeah, one day somebody's be like, no, you know what?
Now that you mention it,
never really thought of it that
yeah,
way.
right. Like you're about to like. Oh my god!
Sorry, you're on your own.
Sorry, buddy.
Yeah.
You ready to say yes? All right, so let's get to it. All right, Josh, the first one, we're going to list the events. The first one is yours. So.
Okay, so I just wanted to make mention that this week actually that we're recording, and last week, partial, we had the Java Champions Conf, the J Champions Conf. It was all held online, 24 sessions. Java Champions did each of the sessions, and everything was recorded, and so right now, if you go to the jchampionsconf.com, you can actually watch all of the sessions. So that's one of the benefits of having everything online, that you can actually go and watch the sessions afterwards. So go check it out.
Yep. And then like the people that are there, like Keto Man and Martin Burbank, like, if they're all like, cream of the crop. Frank is there, Zoran is there, Caesar is there. So it's everything is already on YouTube. So yeah, if you go there, you look at the schedule, you'll see like the different paving the way for Jakarta EE and Apache Tommy E. That's Caesar. GSR 381, that's visual recognition for Java with Frank and Zoran. So we can say like this is like AAA content that you would not find behind any pay. Like usually you pay money to see all this stuff. And they, the J Champions Conf is just putting it out for free because that's the kind of guys they are. So,
yep, and watch for it again next year. Hopefully, we can do it in person, but not quite sure at this point what's going to happen. So we're definitely planning on doing it again, and it was a lot of fun.
Yep. All right. So the next one we have is Dev Nexus. That's coming on February 17th. This year, we usually do a live recording on Dev Nexus. We are actually planning to do an event as part of it. I don't know if it's a session or a mingler or a mingle room, but we'll be there, and it's online, it's free. And again, you see a lot of overlap. Some of the people in the Champions Cup, they're just having a different flavor of the talk or a little bit different talks. So great time to just, if you are a visual learner, if you like conference material, it's super easy to get into those.
Yeah, and it's just a one-day conference, right? And I guess one of the positives is you don't have to decide between sessions anymore.
Yep. Just do all of them.
All serialized.
Yeah, it's like all 37 flavors. Don't decide. Don't compromise. And with that, also we have JFocus, right, Josh?
Yep, JFocus. This is going to be online, of course, and this will be running, I believe, on February 9th. So go ahead, and it's a one-day conference, and lots of speakers at this one that we know about, of course. We've got Josh Block, Holly Cummins, Sebastian Dashner, among others, Jonathan Giles, lots of great speakers, Brian Getz. So this will be a good one. You don't really want to miss it. I'm sure that there will have recordings afterwards here as well, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So go to the page and sign up, jfocus.se.
And the other last one is yours also, right, Josh?
Yeah, so there's going to be a Jakarta Tech conference. Actually, this is just a talk, and I'll be doing it myself with Edwin Dirks, and we're going to be doing this thing in February on the 17th. So I think it's running 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. So go ahead and check that out if you're interested in learning about. We're going to start with MicroProfile and kind of cover some of the features there, and then I'll finish off with showing off some Jakarta EE.
Awesome.
So check it out.
Yeah. And last but not least, Michael.
Spring One. Spring One is back again this year. We're going to be virtual. It's a 2-day conference, September 1st and 2nd. Call for papers is going to open up February 16th. It is free. It is all online, so check it out. Spring1.io.
Yeah.
Sounds
All
good.
right. So those are the events coming up. We'll definitely have it on the show notes as well. So no need to like jot down things if you just want to check either our RSS feed or your YouTube page. And now in news, Josh.
So right now, as we speak here in the end of January, 3/4 of the way actually through, there is this CN4J Alliance discussion that's happening right now. What this is cloud native for Java. That's what CN4J stands for. And this is a discussion between the relationship of MicroProfile and Jakarta EE. Very hot topic here.
Didn't we already talk about this?
Yes.
Yes.
Like, did they go to a divorce and then
Yes.
they split up the children?
So I think that the initial discussion was, should these both have their own working groups or should they join the same working group? That was decided that they were going to be separate working groups. So MicroProfile does have its own separate working group.
With caveats, though. With caveats, because the leadership, I forget what's the board or whatever of Jakarta also gets membership on MicroProfile.
I'm not 100% sure on how that works.
Yeah, there's a sharing of boards there.
And then what I thought was the reason that they wanted to be different, or at least the one flavor that I remember, is that MicroProfile was supposed to be almost like the incubator, forward-looking, quicker,
move
quicker,
fast and break things.
Yeah. And the Jakarta EE was more stable. The laggards, the adoption laggards, we're standardizing things for people to come in. So I thought that was the reason of this split, but still the reason why they have this. They talk to each other, because essentially is whatever didn't work on you, let me know so we can or whatever worked, we can bring it in to Jakarta, right? That's what I thought the setup was.
So that's kind of what it is, and that's actually what this alliance is all about. It's actually about kind of molding the future of these two platforms and deciding upon how they're going to interact. And there are lots of people with different ideas on this, and some people actually if you go, we'll put in the show notes a link to a Google Doc that's out there. This was created by Red Hat. This gives some initial thoughts on what the alliance should be. And quite frankly, some of the text is leading to, newcomers, I would say, to believe that Jakarta EE is not really a forward-looking technology, and MicroProfile is the way forward. So lots of people are looking to kind of change this text a little bit, and rightfully so. And just to put it out there, this was just a starting point. So they had some great ideas here, and I think it's something great to build upon. But we need lots of community input on this, on how things should move forward. I agree, in my opinion. Just so I can put it out there that MicroProfile is going to be bleeding edge. It's going to be innovative, and it's going to be releasing a lot more often than Jakarta EE. However, newcomers should come to Jakarta EE because they may want to use a larger platform or more features, but yet standard. It doesn't mean that it's not going to innovate.
I have a hard time viewing MicroProfile as being bleeding edge. Call me out if I'm wrong, but most of the things I think of that MicroProfile are working on are still things that were bleeding edge years ago, configuration management and circuit breakers and all those kinds of things. That's old hat. It's a form of standardization, which is it's a faster moving spec than say Jakarta, but it's still sorry, I have a hard time saying that's bleeding edge.
So it's interesting, right? Like if we go to Einsteinian physics, where speed is relative. So if you take Jakarta EE as your stationary object, like MicroProfile is like zooming by, right? So
Yeah. So, if you think about it that way, though, yes. So I can see your viewpoint because you're coming from the Spring world, which, I assume that's the direction you're looking. And yes, Spring does have quite a few of these features. If you look at some of these other frameworks and platforms, if you call them, such as Micronaut or Quarkus, these also have these features, right? But from my point of view, MicroProfile is building on the Jakarta EE specifications and building off that.
Which is stuff that's been around for years, right? Like
it's
like saying that's bleeding edge.
come on. It's unfair, right? Well, so for a spec, like Spring is not a spec, right? Like it's a framework.
No.
Right. And that is and yes. So when Spring decides to release something new and exciting, they just have to consult themselves for doing that, right? Of course, you listen to your.
I'm not saying that the process inhibits it from being bleeding edge, but like all I'm saying is call a spade a spade.
Okay.
Okay. That's
faster than Jakarta EE.
I don't know if I actually go to the MicroProfile website, it probably does not say bleeding edge.
Okay.
So I may have put that in there.
Enough.
Okay. So, but from what my main point was is that one will evolve faster than Jakarta EE. That's what I kind of should have said.
Okay. What's the next one that we have? That's Adobe Flash end of life. Mike?
did you skip one, NetBeans?
Oh, I missed NetBeans. Yes.
Okay, so just a quick news item. NetBeans 12.3 is going to be feature freeze here, I believe, the end of this week. So a couple more days. And, I'm working on getting Jakarta EE9 project support in there. That's what I'm working on, but there are lots of other great features going into this one as well. And there's a discussion about whether to release long-term support releases or just to release releases, because does it matter at some point? So if you want to get involved in that discussion, join the NetBeans mailing list. But 12.3 will be coming out soon.
All right. Now we get to Michael.
So this one has a special place in my heart as somebody who my first website built back in college running on GeoCities had Flash embedded in it. I played with Open Laszlo back when Adobe Flex was also the new hot thing out there. I also did some Adobe Flex programming back in the day. Adobe Flash is finally EOL'd and removed, as in stick a fork in it, you can't even run the sucker anymore.
Yeah.
It has had a mixed past of both some cool innovation, some cool capabilities, but security issues left and right. They were just never able to get that thing secure.
Yeah.
Which was kind of its Achilles heel. But yeah, so stick a fork in it. It is officially done as of earlier this week.
Now, the interesting question will be because there will be a lot of there's even, I think it still remember, there's legacy banking application or internal applications that still use this thing. And almost like the way of the ActiveX controllers,
No, I'm sure it still works if you have Windows IE 6, because you're on a corporate network and you never actually upgraded the browser. But it's interesting. It used to be the first thing I installed after I built a new PC. Just was automatic. Okay, time to install Flash, and then for it to be gone is a little bit weird. But honestly, I haven't had it for a while, and all my websites still work. I mean, HTML5, there's a number of things that have replaced it.
And I think there's definitely tons of technology that has the same purpose or does it better than what Flash used to do.
WebGL, and I mean, you have a number of different frameworks built for, it's essentially animation. All of it was animation and graphics, and you can do that in the browser now.
You also had the ActionScript piece, though. So you could actually write software with it.
So That's a scary thought.
Web start.
But yeah,
It's actually
no,
funny. So the company that I worked with that used Flex and ActionScript was a security company. I always found that very, very funny.
oh my gosh, it's like it reminds me of like the cyber law, or like what is like digital log or something. Like the CEO put his like big social security number out in a, so they painted his social security number in a truck. And it's like, I dare you to hack it.
Yep.
And 2 weeks later,
Minutes.
it's like, why do you think that's a good idea? But yeah, the end of an era. All right, one for Adobe then. All right, next one is Josh with MicroProfile 4.0.
MicroProfile 4.0. This was actually released back in November, and this is something that I don't know if we covered in the last episode. I don't believe we did, which is why I kind of put it here.
Mm-hmm.
I can mention some of the, maybe not bleeding edge, but some of the features that went into it. We actually had this release they put in was config 2.0, fault tolerance. That was a health update, and so quite a bit of features were planned into this release, and so it's worth going out and taking a look. Like I said, it came out in November. It's been out for a little while now, so go ahead and start getting going with it.
Still no GraphQL, huh? That hasn't been standardized yet.
No, not that I know of.
It's bleeding edge, right?
It's bleeding edge.
That's
Open tracing, though. I like that.
Yep.
The fault tolerance side. It's,
Why
it's
open
interesting time for
tracing
fault.
Why open tracing and why not open telemetry? Because there's like a whole nother specification around tracing that's happening. That's polyglot as well.
Yeah.
Huh.
I'm not quite sure.
I think
Interesting.
tracing has been around a little longer as far as standardizing something like a Zipkin is probably a little bit more well understood than what
Open
what's
tracing
That
hasn't.
is the
like
came out of the Google
define
paper, right?
how your difference between telemetry and tracing.
There's a project open telemetry.
Okay.
It's a standard from through I believe the CNCF. They're actually looking to standardize tracing metrics and logging as one API.
Okay.
Now,
So yet another effort to do that.
It was actually supposed to supersede this, I believe.
So hold on, just so I get my story straight. Open tracing was based on the Google paper for
Dapper. Well, Zipkin was based on Dapper, which open tracing I thought was based on, right? Or no?
Okay, got it. So yeah, so that's the trace ID and parent ID and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, correlation ID. Call it what you will.
Got it. Okay. And telemetry is that plus what? Like stats D?
Metrics. So
Yeah. So
like Prometheus, Grafana,
got it.
Datadog.
Datadog. Yeah.
I'm sure Datadog's be like, come on, Freddie, you couldn't get that question right. Like, come on, man.
Like X.
Freddie's
No, okay.
Freddie's costing us sponsorships right now.
Yeah. No, but
so backing up, OpenTelemetry is a CNCF sandbox project that is formed through the merger of Open Tracing and Open Census. So like the idea that Open Tracing is still the focus for MicroProfile as the new thing, when even the people that were originally behind Open Tracing have moved on to Open Telemetry.
Well, you're saying sandbox, so I mean, it's if it's the standard, you probably want to go to the established stuff.
We're working with them to go GA like literally every day now.
But I presume that is the Open Telemetry is it's not that it's either or, but it's more of like
it's two separate. It's two separate projects. In fact, Open Telemetry in their issue log has backwards compatibility for open tracing as one of their issues to go GA.
I'm going to be honest. I'm really sick of trying to follow where the people are trying to standardize tracing. Like this is not helpful if we're going to keep creating new efforts to try to standardize tracing, because either we're sick of it or we want to build on it. We're making this harder than it has to be.
No, that reminds me of that XKCD, and then we'll find a screenshot later. But like that XKCD where it says like, oh, there's 7 competing standards. I should create one standard that unifies them, all of them. Oh, now you have 8 competing standards.
Yeah. Hey, one thing I should mention about this release for MicroProfile is I believe 4.0 was the first one released under the MicroProfile working group. So that's pretty important.
And
milestone.
It was 14 commuting standards, by the way. I found the comic.
Okay.
We need to enable sharing now. All right. So I guess moving on to the next piece of news is an interesting New York Times piece, right? Like this is one that I brought up, and this is essentially the headline is widely used software company may be entry point for huge U.S. hacking, and when you read about it, they're talking about JetBrains, and the way the article essentially saying is Russian hackers are going through this Czech company, they discover a vulnerability. And the one thing that is such a red herring is that when you start actually trying to dig into the story, what happened is that somebody set up a build server, TeamCity, which is one of the products of JetBrains, and never really secured the password.
And this is the Solarwinds hack, right? Just for the more common name that folks. I mean, this is the one that most intelligence agencies believe originated from Russia. Where SolarWinds provides metrics and kind of monitoring software just to oversimplify what they do.
Yeah.
And this was a build server. This was a TeamCity server for SolarWinds, the software product, or do you, that's the part I didn't quite get from the article.
Yeah. So apparently, like, I think this is I don't think they describe it that much, but it is, they just say that they're used within SolarWinds. So I presume that that's their build server. So where in the process it goes, I don't know, but they say like that was the entry point, and they compromise emails, and they compromise everything. So it might not be even used for the security part, but that was sort of like how they got into SolarWinds. It was,
and this isn't that technique isn't new. So I worked at a company called TrustWave in a previous life. And actually, one of the security researchers there, Jonathan Claudius, did a talk back in 2013 on this very topic, using CI servers as a way, basically as an entry point into a broader network. And he actually released a tool back then called Rotten Apple that you can run on your CI system, and it does all kinds of checks like, are you running your CI builds as root? Are you? Are you? Does this have push commit? Does this have commit access to the repo that it's building against? Like all the things that you shouldn't do, all the things that they probably used against that TeamCity server, like this tool checks for. But like this using CI systems as an entry point has been a known thing for years, and I believe JetBrains kind of replied saying, you got to secure your stuff. Like exactly, like we sold you software with directions on how to secure.
It's like almost like
we just make the guns. No.
Yeah, right. No, seriously.
No, this feels more like almost where Patsy Struts was getting,
heat from that
because Equifax didn't upgrade when they fixed the issue. It's like you got to stay on your software patches, or else the software is going to have bugs and vulnerabilities in it. I mean, of course.
No, and I think the part that I resent is once you read what the problem is, which is SolarWinds did not secure their CI/CD server, or somebody just hacked their password. It's like, okay, they were dumb. They should have done that. They didn't. This is a known vector for attack, like Michael said. But the story comes out, and it almost like colors it. It was like, how can you ever trust a Russian, a Czech company that is responsible for the attack vector of of Solarwinds. It's like it just leaves a bad flavor in the mouth because like unless you happen to understand exactly what happened and how these products work, for somebody who is not like who's not in our field, this almost like sounds like, why are we using like make America great again, just only use American products? It's like, it's dumb.
Well,
like,
do you use Nginx? I mean, that's, well, I mean, I guess it was bought by F5, but I mean, Nginx, the company was a Russian company. I mean, so a very large portion of the web servers serving traffic over the internet are written.
I mean, Russian programmers are all over open source software.
Everywhere.
They've got a great cohort of programmers over there. So like that's to be expected. They so to lump them all together and say, oh, you shouldn't trust anything coming out of Russia is just
it's and I don't know if there is a way, like this is a New York Times article. So and that was the part that like irked me. It's like, how can you like, combat this type? Because the problem is that, again, know that I do love JetBrains. Like I do love their products and I do love their IDE because I'm one of their big users in this group at least. But like is there any responsibility? Like like how? I don't know if there's a way for us to hold these stories accountable to what really happened. And it's one of those things that I always think like how can we make this reporting better? But yeah,
it's hard because it's a very technical problem, and to say that the Team City server wasn't involved isn't necessarily responsible reporting, because there may be other people that have those same vulnerabilities that it could be serve as a good wake up call too. But there is a narrative out there in the U.S. media about Russia. The past presidential administration, obviously there was a huge investigation into them about ties to Russia. So clearly it's a hot button, and media companies know that, and they want to get the clicks because, you look at the pay model that a lot of media is based on.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reason for them to try to push that, just to try to get the clicks and to try to get the, the ad revenue that is inherent from that. So, to try to solve that, I mean,
we need to be bigger.
Yeah.
We need more listeners.
The other hard part is if you go super technical, you may lose some of your audience because they may not want to try to follow those. It's easier to follow the simple thing. Is, oh, there's Russian programmers out there we can't trust. Oh, that I get. The media's been telling me that for months.
It reminds me of the cases I listened to from the Supreme Court.
Like before Alsip, like
yeah, well, basically after that, because he was on the Supreme Court, right? But in prep to listen to the Oracle v. Google case, I listened to one about copyrighted domain names, and it was interesting listening to a collection of non-technical justices trying to what their real goal was is give me the analogy. Give me the analogy that I can understand, that I can apply precedent from there to this case. And I think that's probably the most useful technique as a journalist to do, is that same thing. Come up with an analogy that makes sense to the broader, your non-technical readers.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the one for this is, people broke in, but you left the door open. I mean.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think I think part of it was almost like, it feels that they did not sit down with like they got a quote like, "Are you under investigation?" And it's like, we didn't realize we were under investigation. Like, but there was no like sitting down, like, or at least if there were, it never showed through the story of like, let me explain you what the problem is, right? And it felt that on this particular case, if you're a reporter, you're supposed to hear the story from all sides, they come to a conclusion. But it does seem like in this particular one, it was mostly like clickbait. It doesn't feel like JetBrains was actually reached out to explain the things, because like.
Now, full disclosure, it was like they didn't change passwords and stuff, right? It was stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
All passwords, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So there would be something to say for JetBrains with regards to making your product secure by default. Like, just don't have default passwords. Like when your software starts up, you generate a new one and email it to somebody, kind of thing.
Yeah, which I agree, and that should be. I think that's a little slap on the wrist. But making that jump from that to Russian hackers.
Yeah, no, completely agreed. Yeah, like
all right. Let's go on because the night is young and there's tons to cover. So, all right. We'll put the link to the New York Times article and let you decide what your opinion on it is. All right. So the discussion topics are somewhat interesting because we are in a different world now. This actually just happened fairly recently, and it's the very first thing that happened, and it's concerned of us technologists because we may have to deal with this. Either we have companies that enable it, or we are part of the companies that can enable this. Is the censorship of Parler. For those who don't know, Parler used to be
just
I guess, well, it used to be, and now it is back again. It came back from the dead, right? It a place where it's a social media, how do you call it? A social media site for the caters to sort of like more of the right wing, sort of like opinions, and that's a nice name to call them. But
let's be careful how we word this. Saying that that's just right wing probably isn't fair.
Yeah, conservative.
Most regular
is what they
more
try to brand it as, a conservative social media. That is kind of anti-censorship, and let's even put it even more in the context of current events. I mean, a lot of this deplatforming happened after the Capitol riots and the basically the mob breaking into the Capitol and finding that Parler was one of the platforms that was used to help coordinate some of these activities. I mean, it's an ongoing investigation. So, I mean, some of what I'm saying is it probably needs, some more verification. But there was enough there that Amazon decided that the infrastructure that they had to serve Parler was basically going to be pulled out from under them.
Yeah, no. So let's talk about that, right? Like, so just to give context, there was for those who've been living under a rock or may not be part of the U.S., there was I guess you called it. Is it considered an attempted coup to our American government that happened like January 6th. And out of that, a lot of information, like Bob said, was that it seems like these people were coordinating for the attempted coup through Parler, which is the website. And the thing that came down, that like the way that the dominoes fell down was, I think Apple was the one that first started saying like, we're not going to let you download the app through the App Store. Yeah. And then Google followed suit, I think a day or 2 days later, doing the same thing where it's like, nope, you're not going to be able to use the website. And then lastly came like Amazon. Well, that was the last when Drew with the Dominoes piece fell down, is when Amazon, where they had like the EC2 and or whatever, they were using their cloud provider as a way of hosting the actual Parler content, decided we don't want to do business with you anymore. And essentially it sent Parler into like a big sort of like a tailspin because they didn't have servers, so they didn't even have a website and they didn't have the apps. It was interesting because one of the memes that came out of that was that Parler created a cloud neutral strategy and it's going to go back up in a day. And that's kind of hard to believe. Like it's having a cloud neutral strategy it's hard to do anything neutral. So they make that claim, but to their credit, I don't know if there's the credit, they are back up again, I think, right? Like it's been like what, a week and a half, 2 weeks, and now they found a host and they found a I don't know if they found Big Iron or they still have a cloud provider that allows them to run.
Yeah, but I think, the interesting part of the story is the amount of sway that app providers, Google and Apple, as well as infrastructure providers, AWS and the cloud, have over tech platforms. I mean, so it's you had three players essentially pull the rug out,
and you have no recourse.
And it's like,
Yeah.
boy, what do you do when that happens? As far as the interesting thing is from my perspective is well, what is the criteria for doing this, and what are the implications for other companies that may be doing things that, again, you could call them fringe or potentially even unethical things, but when is this okay and when is it not, I guess, is the question that pops in my head.
No, yeah, it's hard. And who gets to make the call?
Right.
Like right now, it is a private company making a call about another private company. The way our laws are set up, that makes sense. But when you consider the impact of the internet and how important it is and how easy it would be for an Amazon to do like something like just say Parler's a competitor of ours.
Yeah.
Or, insert whatever other reason,
No,
be religious beliefs or like, other things, where do you draw the line, I guess? There has to be some kind of oversight to this, I guess.
So I guess the way I'll start it is where the easy calls to make, or at least the less controversial ones, right? Like because a lot of the complaints is around censorship, right? Like, oh, you're infringing in the U.S. the American Constitution First Amendment for freedom of speech, and for that one at least I think is clear cut. Like, if the government is not actively censoring you, they have not infringing your right.
Yeah,
it's not a First Amendment issue.
Yeah, it's not. I agree. I think that it's fairly easy to say that you still have like a bully pulpit. If you really want to, you can find somebody who will do business with you and host your site, which Parler actually did. Like, they are back up, right? So then the next question is was there okay, so I guess the question is, do they form a cartel, right? Like, is it just happen to be the next part is like, was it an oligopoly saying like, we're not going to deal with you and we're going to use our power, or was this like independent decisions,
right? And especially, I mean, that especially shines a bright light because a lot of these companies are currently under investigation from the government for antitrust activities. I mean, you mentioned Google specifically. Amazon has been a company that's mentioned, and a lot may change under the new administration, but I think a lot of those investigations are actually bipartisan in this country. So they're very likely going to continue. And I think that's the interest that is a huge interesting thing with when you look at the market share that these companies have. They do have enough sway where, it's not a free speech thing, but could it be antitrust? Could it be discrimination based on religious beliefs was mentioned, where maybe it's not free speech, but if you're there's employment laws speech, obviously, against discriminating based on creed and race and things like that. Could that come into play here? So there's other statutes that make this a lot harder to ignore.
No, the interesting part too is like, and I think this is where it gets muddy, is that right now, it's interesting, right? Like in the previous administration, I can say that now. One of the things that they tried to and failed was to repeal Section 230, I think it was, 230, where the idea was that in the Federal Communications Commissions, it says that if you are like a platform, a social media platform, you're a hosting platform, like, and somebody makes a rude comment or a comment that is problematic for whatever reason, right? Like it's not protected speech, it incites violence, whatever it is. Usually, Section 230 of the FCC says that, well, you didn't produce the content, even though you're hosting it, it was not something that that you like you did a good effort trying to like figure out and disable it. But if it you are not held responsible for the opinion of a user that decided to use your platform to opine on something that they shouldn't, right?
Yeah, and this goes back to message boards. I mean, this is actually
this
something
is
that's
old.
existed for as long as I can remember the internet, to be
Yeah.
honest. I don't know when it was introduced, but it's been there forever.
Yeah, and if you look at all the major organizations and companies that do this now, Facebook and Apple with the App Store, I mean, they have content filters. They're not just letting everything fly by. So does Parler have one of those in place? And should they have? If they don't, what are the rules there? What kind of content filtering do you have to perform?
So we're diverging into two separate issues, though, right? One is
the
platform censoring the people on it. The other one is censoring the
platform itself.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So we're moving into our second discussion topic, I think.
Yeah.
Is what Michael's calling out, which we could do if we feel like we're done with the the platform censorship. I think if you take away a lot of the antitrust issues, if there were so many competitors out there that replatforming was, hey, we just moved over to another one, you probably don't have as much of an issue with this. But I think
is that a case, right?
Given the fact that it is a lot of the cloud is a very small number of players, unless you're going to say, well, you could host it yourself. It's hard to make the claim that some of this could end up in court.
Because like
Russia.
Which I find extremely funny, because if there's an audience who will hate being hosted by a Russian company, it will be probably the creators of Parler. But and that's the thing, though. Like so two strikes against them is the first one is it doesn't need to be cloud. That is a choice, right? Like you can do this however you want. The second one is, though, so it's not cloud providers. The universe is any internet service provider that can give you some access to the internet, right? And the second one is that the second strike against that is that they came up. Somebody decided that they paid enough money that I want to do business with them, and they're up again. So if that can happen, then it sort of weakens the argument that this was essentially an antitrust thing.
Yeah, I don't buy that, though. I mean, because if you've invested, even if you've just said, hey, we're going to do just one cloud, and you've built out all the Terraform scripts, and you've built out, you've paid developers to do work to platform you on a certain cloud, whether that's AWS or whatever, Google, like, that is a cost. And if they can just turn around and say, yeah, you can't be on our platform, the reason matters.
That's business as usual, right? I think it's at will businesses, right? Like if you sign a contract, there always be clauses.
That's
where
employment.
They say,
you're talking about at will.
But meaning, like, if you engage in services, right? You always agree to the terms of the service, and there are cancellation clauses in there, where either one or both parties can decide we don't want to do business with each other again. This is normal business behavior. There have been 100 projects that I've been participating where you build the stuff and suddenly 3/4 of it done. It's like, nope, it buckled because of ABC reasons. We're not going to do this anymore, and that's normal. That, I don't think that in itself is worthy of if you breach the contract, then you'd go to a court to say you breached the contract. But if the contract was breached and these were services that both people enter at will, that's what it is. It's risk of doing business. I mean, that's the reason why Google will tell you, I'll give it to you cheaper. I'll produce more longer stuff. I'll give you a better trial. That's competition, right?
I mean, the part that I have a problem with is cancellation. You're right. So if you write it in the contract, but I mean, does Amazon really have it that, hey, we can cancel you for any reason, or do we have to give cause?
I'm sure that somebody tried to do just imagine this. Somebody decides to create a very illegal website in the US, and easy. They'll
A lot of them all. I mean, so
They
take
all have that.
illegal off the table. They all have that.
They all exactly. They all have that clause. In fact, that goes even beyond this.
Yeah.
I mean, this was, you know, I know, like, if you want to be a credit card merchant, you have to be scanned not only for security but also for like
PII and PCI.
PCI.
well, no, it's
Yeah.
beyond that. It's beyond just that. It's also like, are your servers hosting the business you're running is on the same box of porn site? Like, if it is, nope. Like, they can do that. And so
Mhm.
like, there are companies that will do those kinds of scans and figure that stuff out as well. But that's all in the but to Freddie's point, it's all in the contract. Like, it's not it's not unknown when you walk into this deal.
Yeah. So I guess what is the cause that's being provided? Is did Parler is if I mean, again, if you're going to say, hey, Parler's doing things that are illegal, then sure, you've got a pretty strong case to just cancel their contract and pull the rug out from under them. Some of the other examples you gave, Michael, where it's like, hey, you're a competitor and we just don't like it, or
Yes, I like
monetary reasons. I think those are the ones that strike me as a little bit more suspect and
well, if it's in the contract,
sure,
like,
if it's in the
yeah. If it's
I
in the
guess
contract,
I'm curious what maybe some of it's digging into that and looking at what those cancellation clauses are, because I also feel like the fact that they are oligopolies or monopolies does also complicate this topic.
This is speculation on my part, but I'm pretty sure we can all agree that one of the main reasons that this happened so fast or so quickly was in order to prevent any future issues like we saw at the Capitol.
Right.
And so they had in their mind, in the company's mind, they had justification to take this down in order to prevent a future activity, something perhaps that was coordinated on such a network, before this happened last week. So my guess is it was a quick, off the cuff, take it down action. Do they need to have all that written out in legal?
Well, so it sounds like that's exactly what it was, a legal thing. So according to BuzzFeed, who obtained an email from AWS to Parler's chief policy officer, I'll read this paragraph. In an email obtained by BuzzFeed News, an AWS trust and safety team member told Parler chief policy officer Amy Paykoff that the calls for violence propagating across the social network violated its terms of service. Amazon said it was unconvinced that the service's plan to use volunteers to moderate calls for violence and hate speech would be effective. Therefore,
so they have an exit clause essentially in their contract.
Yeah.
So
And that's another very typical one. I mean, if a site is inciting violence or causing harm, that's almost every single one of them have clauses where they.
I wonder. Yeah. So it was illegal. Like, what is it like? You become accessory to a crime, like that type of deal where.
Yeah. No, I mean, those, again, most of these companies do not want to be an accessory to any type of thing. I mean, if Alexa overhears you plotting to kill someone and Amazon has a recording of that, I mean, to say the FBI couldn't subpoena them and try to get that, I mean, it's
you're actually going to make the argument that they've never done that before. Come on.
I'm obviously not going to make that argument. It's there.
We don't know what
it's
happens
there,
in AWS.
right? It's there.
Exactly.
And they have it on their servers, so there's liability, and they need to protect themselves from that liability. And again, if that's the zone we're in, like, that's not new territory. And the new territory, I think, were some of the examples you were given before, Michael, where it was, hey, competitive relationships and things where it's a little bit like, wait a minute.
I don't know. Maybe because of the space where I sit, where I again, I work for a travel company and we have very good competitors, and we consider Google a competitor because they do serve travels as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that there's always that tension. Like it's like frenemies, right? Like we love Google for certain things, like ad placement and stuff, but we, they are a competitor of ours. So it's and there are like there will be meetings where questions is like, does it make sense? Does it not make sense? When does it make sense, right? And that's true even for like so that you decide not to engage with business with somebody because they might be a competitor of yours. I don't think that's still like, I don't feel, and maybe because I'm embedded in it, that it's not shady territory. That's just business sense. Like
no. That's absolutely true. I've worked with e-commerce companies that would not partner with Amazon for that reason. Amazon is an e-commerce company, and putting their stuff on Amazon's platform is essentially funding a competitor. So that absolutely does come into that conversation.
Mm-hmm. So then I don't feel it that. In that sense, I don't think it's right. Like if like I don't think, well, in this particular case, yeah, Amazon shut down, and Google and Apple and shut down Parler, not necessarily because they were a competitor, but that was legal exposure.
But let's talk a little bit about the other scenario that we were alluding to about individuals, because I think that's another interesting one. And just to put some context around this, in the same vein, from the same current events we were talking about, Facebook, Twitter,
Instagram,
actually a whole slew
YouTube.
of them ended up blocking the president of the United States.
Allegedly Pornhub
accounts and a number of other associated accounts.
Finally.
So, so I
What
mean,
took so
I
long?
feel like that's another thing to discuss. As what are the rights of individuals dealing with a censorship or basically being muted on these large platforms.
And for that, let me start with the same argument, right? The previous administration and the previous president always had a bully pulpit. Like any day of the week, he could really walk down and say, I'm going to do a press conference. And he will have the attention. Like he has a way to reach the American people any way he wanted. So that almost goes to the same, like, this is not a freedom of speech thing, because he can talk. He can talk, and everybody will repeat his words and broadcast what he says. The thing that happened is that his favorite toy was taken away. So that's how I see it. Like again, I'm not necessarily convinced that it's a censorship, like freedom of speech, First Amendment right type of deal. It might be more on like the coordination and stuff, but again, I think or at least maybe not as easy as Parler, but the easy argument to make is like, I still think that this is not a First Amendment violation.
Well, it's a private company again in this case. Yeah. It's not the government censoring your speech.
He is a government.
Yeah, no, it's the opposite, right? You're censoring a government official on a private company platform. So, and I think the reason a lot of this is perceived the way it is a lot of people look at these free social media platforms almost like they are utilities, like electricity. So they start looking at them like as if they're government entities that, my freedom of speech should be, regarded on. But I think that's part of the perception of why that comes out that way.
I think we're getting to that point though. When we think of, the lawsuits that are coming up right now against Google and antitrust and that kind of thing, when you consider how information flows in today's society, there's a finite number of ways that happens that funnel through a handful of very large corporations.
Yeah,
and they're actually even like every day there's more consolidation in this industry, both from a social media perspective and a non-social media perspective, right? Like if you look at I'd have to find the graph again, but someone put together a chart of basically all of the major news outlets in the United States and funneled them all back through their corporate overlords. There's like 3. out of the hundreds of ways of getting news in this
Univision
country,
and Fox
they all
News
go
and-
back down to
Yes.
like three major companies. And on the social media side, again, like, Facebook owns Instagram, and like, Google owns YouTube, and like there's a lot of consolidation in that corner of the world. I think that's even going to continue. So there will come to a point where, because of both how few avenues there are and how important they've become to society, I think that there will have to be something different than just it's a private company, they can do what they want.
Are you saying that we need C-SPAN for Twitter?
No, what I'm saying though
But
is that
that's the answer though, right?
I'm saying that that some people treat Twitter as C-SPAN.
But that's
there's people that I know in my family that treat Facebook as the news. The fact that they saw something on Facebook makes it true.
I mean, when I think of this past year and how information around our public schools in our school district, how information flowed around those kind of topics, that was all through Facebook.
Mhm.
There was almost no other avenue that information flowed.
Yeah.
And granted,
Facebook
and then you
posts.
had people being rational and logical and listening to scientists and whatnot, and you had the people that are just like they don't care. It's like as the term I've coined in the household is the wackadoodles. And so I do think we're going to get to a point where you can't just it's not going to be good enough to say I'm a private company, I can censor who I want on there. I'm not like, I don't think we're there yet. I think that there's more nuance to it that I haven't completely thought out, but
yeah, I mean, when mass media came out, I mean, you had government institutions like the FCC there to help regulate what you could put on. But now we basically have the situation where anybody can go on and post something that receives millions of views. So, I mean, we are, as individuals, are all essentially our own network.
Yes, 100%.
In this model. I mean, it matters whether people want to believe what we're saying. The heart leans and the head justifies, right? So if you're speaking to somebody else's, what they feel is true, that may be enough for some folks.
The question is though, where does it end with respect to the censorship? Because, sometimes, yes, you can argue that it is warranted and should be. However, a good topic is the coronavirus. You look around at the different news outlets, it can be complete opposite what you read from one to the other. What is the one you believe? And people can go to these media platforms and do the same type of thing. And if the owners of the media platform believe that it's not true, can they just go ahead and censor that stuff out?
I think that happens a lot, right? Every newspaper will have essentially some kind of filter of what stories they do publish, right? And a lot of it will be like they might get two conflicting stories about the same topic, and they just, this is what we think it is, and they go that. So that's quote unquote normal. I don't think that's it's the same. I have the right to turn off my TV, right? I decide what channel I want to like listening. So I guess the interesting part that I think is different was that at the very beginning, I remember, I think Twitter was the first one that tried to say, look, I'm just going to step back and let people figure it out, right? And they were very late in trying to, and I actually I'll say that same with Facebook. Zuckerberg came publicly saying
Facebook more than Twitter.
Yeah, they'd say we don't want to police the world, like that,
But when you're the voice, when you provide the world a voice, you take on that with great power comes with great responsibility. You take on that responsibility.
Yeah, I think so the interesting, it's almost like where do you make the distinction, right? So I think it got to a point where you're right. It got too big, to let it be, Lord of the Flies. Like it got big enough that
this isn't a college dating site anymore.
yeah. Like the question is, so then you have to have, rules now, like saying these is the type of things that I will allow on this megaphone, really. The question then becomes, right? Like, for example, if you take the Great Firewall of China and you take, sort of like a government where speaking ill of the government, for example, is something you cannot do, right? It's you get these two extremes, and I guess the part that you want to first, you want to recognize that when you start censorship, it does not end in China. Like, there is a degree of
and the U.S. has been able to manage that kind of thing. I mean, when I do think about this as a starting point, I can't help but think, keep it simple. If it's a public post, you have to abide by the FCC rules. If it's a private post, do what you want. Private post equals private conversation. Public post means that why on Facebook do you get any more leeway than the actors on ABC do?
Well, it's interesting because, like, what is considered a private post, right? Like, can I privately post to 10,000 people, 1 million people? Like, what is Trump's, subscribers considered private? Like,
well, Trump's Twitter handle is public. You didn't have to log in. I didn't have to friend him. Like just go to the page, and there everything was.
So you have to be on Twitter, I guess.
No, you don't. I don't have to.
No,
I don't have to be on Twitter to view somebody's profile. Public.
Yeah, you can go to the page and see it.
Yeah,
no matter what.
Yeah.
Mm.
I mean, you can.
You have to be on the internet. Okay,
yeah.
Which is in the utility.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
that is the utility argument.
That's the level we're going to go to.
All right. Yeah.
I definitely like that, though. I thought that was a good point you made there, Michael. I mean, FCC compliancy when there's a public post. I mean, I know I've listened to things where people work for some of these companies as content filters, and they say it's horrible what they've got to see to filter this stuff out. You definitely have to have someone in the middle catching this stuff, because it's going to get out there if you don't. So yeah, I think the FCC thing is a good.
So again, that's kind of a throw a dart at the wall, and kind of like it's in the ballpark. It's a great starting point. I in no way think that that's the end all be all. That's the way we should be. But it's like feels like a rational.
Yeah, it's easy when there's a limited number of authors or content producers out there. When they're outnumbered and the level that they are, like FCC maybe could make the rules, but as far as the policing effort and what what happens there again is a lot more complicated.
There is some safe harbor, right?
When you get into you can get relatively good in some of this stuff with automation and
But what about this
and all that kind of stuff? Like,
what about this? Like, the interesting part is, like you said, like private, do whatever you want. Is Parler considered a private group?
Yes.
So
is it?
Are they public like Twitter, or is it like Facebook where you need
to private meaning in terms of conversation? Like,
but so go back, like I would consider, when I say public versus private, I consider a public post on Facebook would fall under the FCC side of things, not under the.
Okay, but a public post on Facebook is not restricted to my friends only, right? Or are you defining public differently?
No, I'm defining it the way you are.
Okay, so a public, no constraints, meaning I could go to a search engine and find said post.
And you'll find it, right?
Oh, to the thing too, you got to take a step back. What do we always tell our kids, and what do we go by? If you put something on the web, you got to know that someone out there is going to find it at some point. Don't ever post something you don't want to have.
I 100% agree, but that's not the platform. That's almost making the individual more responsible. So that's going down a different route. So the FCC can say, hey, the platform is responsible for this. I mean, I think you're actually going after a different aspect of this is how do we handle individuals that are posting either misinformation or things on the internet that are patently false, because right now, you've got libel, and there's a few laws around, hey, you can't just go after people and defame somebody, but they're so hard to enforce. Like, I don't feel like we have any sort of means of going after, disinformation, which I think is even bigger concern right now with the fact that we have nothing, right?
I completely agree with you. We do not have a legal framework for handling misinformation the way it is passed around in 2020 online and so on. Like the QAnon, the all that kind of stuff. Handling those kinds of situations, we do not have a legal framework for, in my opinion.
It's the problem that, and I think that the problem that we have is that again, remember that whatever, even though like we are turning a new page, a lot of people believe all these theories that has been debunked by the legal system, but
you're speaking to the election, just to say legal system, because QAnon, I don't know that there's any legal stuff going on with that.
No, correct. So correct. So well, it's the theories that they form, right? Like the theory that the
election was stolen, and there's plenty of judicial rulings against it. But if there was, there's no evidence of it. So,
but the problem is that where we are on this side, right? Like we believe that there's no evidence because we see it going through how we're going through the actual like legal system, and the legal system said no, there's no evidence, right? And we trust that. Mm-hmm. But there's there is a big swath of the population that did not trust that judgment and did not trust that legal system.
Why didn't they trust it though? Because somebody else of power that they do trust more said
that is not to be trusted.
Back to Paul, right?
Yes and no. I've spoken to a number of people that, regardless of what the people in power said, again, I think there are folks with specific biases against certain things, that whether people in power said it or not. I mean, I'm not saying that wasn't a factor. No, but I'm just saying that there is more than just that. I mean, the conversation I have, even again with family members about this, I mean, that's, they're in law enforcement or something, and they have certain things that they've seen in their dealings that lead them to believe that these things that are being put out there are possible. Now, being in law enforcement, you think, hey, you need evidence still. Mm-hmm. But just because they're possible, they're suspicious of it. And that's driving a lot of this, I think.
Well, I think that the interesting thing that I hitch on is like if there were to go to a court of law and there needs to be a jury of your peers to make a judgment, right? If the jury comes out and says like, oh, you're nuts, like you're done for, you're not supposed to believe any of this, get out of here, then it's super easy. Fringe theory. You can disqualify whatever that person. But I did it.
We know that's not true, and to be super controversial, if that were true, almost nobody would believe in God.
Hmm? If that what?
If what you just said is true, almost nobody would believe in God. Yeah. Where's the evidence?
It's not about evidence.
It's based on faith, right? I mean, most of the religions are based on faith.
No, that's
unseen.
But hold on.
Right.
The argument I'm making is not necessarily do you believe in God, but is that the people of a jury can agree that whatever you're saying is too far-fetched or something that is out of the ordinary. So we find that your beliefs were not right, and therefore it's very easy to say like QAnon theories are not real.
So
now, but if you get a mix,
that doesn't change the people who believe in QAnon. That doesn't change their position.
But that's the point that I'm trying to make. If you choose a random sample of the population and bring them to a court, and somebody from QAnon stands out there and says this is what's happening, you get, I think right now is 60-40 or maybe 70-30, but you won't get a unanimous jury saying like that person is crazy, right? Like the issue that we have right now is that to debunk, because there's two problems. The first problem is if you change the situation and you say like I'm in China and say like I feel oppressed, and suddenly you try to like the government will go in and say, no, you're not, and you better shut up, because if not, we're gonna get you, right? The problem that happens is when we do it here, that it's very hard when you go to the court of law, because there is no agreement that what you're bringing up is really crazy bunkers to just disqualify them.
What I feel you're trying to say is in a court of law, you need to provide evidence. Now, even in a court of law, you can say you can't prove it because you don't have the evidence, but it doesn't necessarily mean it didn't happen. It just means I don't have the evidence. And a lot of people think that way. Again, we're using the voter fraud well, there isn't evidence of voter fraud. I still believe that all these scenarios could have happened. Just because we haven't found the evidence means we haven't looked hard enough. And people will stick to that belief because it's hard to disprove something, because you have to, it's almost like you're trying to prove that the voter fraud didn't happen. You have to go through and prove everything, right? It goes. It's not proving by negation. You have to justify you have to defend everything.
That's evidence of absence, right? You can't prove that something didn't happen.
No,
it cannot be done.
No. But that's you're like, we're conflating, right? Like what happens is that.
No, I think that's exactly it, though.
No,
that's what people are asking for. They're asking to prove that it didn't happen. And to prove that it didn't happen means you have to visit every case.
It's impossible.
Possibility.
Yeah.
I think that's exactly it.
So that is because, the reason why there was never a jury deciding on any of these things is because there was never enough evidence that could convince a judge to bring the case forward.
Correct.
Right. And now, but, and that's what you have. So is the argument then is we should ignore how 40 million people believe?
Well, we're not going there. What I'm saying is what I feel the populace is at right now is it's the case brought into court is prove there was voter fraud. The case that people have in their own minds is disprove there wasn't voter fraud. And you can't go to a judge and have a case and ask the judge to disprove that there wasn't any. It's the absence of evidence of it happening.
The line that I'm trying to connect is to qualify all this, like, for example, Parler's involvement, right? Like saying like Parler is something doing illegal because it's harboring, this a lot of these theories that are causing harm. The reason why we believe these are just, myths and theories is because there has been no evidence. And the judge that were willing to hear the case of voter fraud, hence feel the right for staging a coup, is unfounded. The problem that you have is that then what does that mean? Doesn't that mean that companies like Twitter, Facebook, Parler need to educate to what the judiciary branch of that particular government that these people are coming from dictates as a measuring stick of what is allowed or not? Like it's gummy.
Yeah. I mean, this is back to the problem. We don't have a legal framework for handling this, and part of the problem with it is it's okay. At what point are we allowed not to be critical? Is it
correct?
Is it at the point where
I thought
we're 3 weeks we're 3 weeks into this election. There's been 2 or 3 recounts. People have looked into some of these things. Is that the point where we can say that, hey, look, there's no evidence, and we really did look, and now you're telling us? It's like Holocaust deniers. Like, I mean, at what point?
You never convince them.
At what point have we provided you with enough evidence that this happened?
And I think that actually that's an interesting timeline, because I think at that round around like the 2-3 week mark was when both Facebook and Twitter start putting the disclaimer on Trump's tweets, right? Like, this is widely disputed, right? And
Twitter did it first, and then Facebook followed.
And then Facebook followed, right? I don't think it's straight. Like, the only thing I can come up with is like, it's not straightforward. Like you're gonna make, like, there's nothing that you can, I don't think there's anything that can be said that's not gonna make anybody or like everybody happy. Like everybody will be angry. Somebody will always be angry, and there'll be a significant portion. Doesn't matter what you decide to be your litmus test.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
mean,
our
I think
problem.
these are the first steps, right? So, I mean, being able to label misinformation and just trying to figure out where the bar is. I mean, you know, the disputing of the election, the labels, I'm trying to remember where they came in. Because again, in my example, hey, a few weeks went by, we looked into it, we didn't find anything. I feel the labels started well before the recounts were done and all that. So they started labeling things.
It was before the election started.
Yeah, it could have been. It could have been. I'm not sure. I think it was actually because they were talking about hypotheticals, right, of mail-in voting, whereas mail-in voting hadn't had any evidence of fraud. But the argument was, hey, the potential is there for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what was controversial about it is the potential is potentially there, but at the same time, it's like I looked into being an election judge this election cycle. I didn't, the slots were all used up by the time I got around to figuring out which political party I was going to pencil in. But there are a number of things out there that are meant to prevent fraud in mail-in ballots. Now, does it make everybody's concerns happy? No, there's still probably cases where you can get election fraud through mail-in ballots. Is it enough to coordinate and sway an election? I mean, that's where it starts to get a lot more skeptical. I mean,
and that's where the argument this time kind of fell apart was like, even the numbers that were being argued, there was election fraud here and it was 500 votes. Like, dude, you lost by a couple million. Even if you were able to flip one of the states you're discussing, it was not enough to change the outcome of the election.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because this super easy if everybody will just trust that judgment, right? Like
it would be super easy if we all just trust each other.
Why can't we all just
get along?
The irony of
institution, no. The institutions that looked into it and said there's no fraud, right? Like, and there were many, starting from the reason why you have observers, the reason why you have like
Trump's own DOJ.
Yeah, exactly. So the issue is that I think it made it extremely hard, and the reason why Twitter and Facebook and everybody essentially went to drastic measures late is because technically there was no consensus. So or there was a barely a majority consensus which is I guess they'll be much more happy if it was considered like you're just cuckoo, right? Like nobody, or at least nobody I know, thinks the earth is flat. Like you can consider that a fringe group and nobody's going to entertain your thoughts anymore, right?
They have conferences.
They do.
Flat Earth.
We have more.
Yeah, I mean that's the where is the bar, and I think that's where this conversation kind of is going to revolve around.
Yeah, I think it's
when to do it. I think the fact that we've started labeling things
it's a good step
has
forward.
been a step in the right direction. I think where the line is drawn, I think, is still a debate.
Yeah.
That's going to go, because I don't like, hey, don't be critical of the government. Now, wait, that's just as un-American as some of the other things that were said to cause the
China
violence.
Censorship, right? That is the issue, right? Like there must be a way where you can censor and not be, absolute.
I mean, we've got bigger cultural issues that this is more of a symptom of anyways, right? I mean, like the fact that science is discounted, facts are it's not, well, your facts aren't my facts.
Right.
You understand what facts means? You understand what there's a cultural issue there that like even the controlling who can say what.
Yeah, no, wearing a mask is slavery. Like
yeah. I mean, it's
I don't know about that one. Yeah, so
I posted years ago on Facebook. I'm like, I wish Facebook would have a Snopes validation button. Just like you click it, it runs it through Snopes, and like, is it valid or not? Like,
yeah, right. And it feels that it could be done. It naturally feels that that could be.
But I don't think that would change anything. Like just saying that, yeah, that this statement is full of crap. I don't think it would change anything.
I think at some point in time you realize that you're in this echo chamber if the only stories you start reading has that warning in there.
It may not. I guess the danger is more in the propagation, right? Because the fact that you can read a scientific journal, which is peer reviewed and has gone through a level of scrutiny that whoever could say something on the internet and get it retweeted a million times. Like that journal article sure as hell didn't get retweeted a million times, but whatever this guy said did. So the fact that a million people agree with him, how the hell could he be wrong? I mean, that the propagation is really, I feel you're not going to change the minds, but you can stop getting people swayed by patently false information.
So is this, and I'm being facetious here, is the solution dismantling Twitter and then just go to Nextdoor?
It's how do you limit the spread of the disinformation? I think it's figuring out. We talked about the bar, right? When can we actually say this is in fact disinformation and not a hypothesis that's
it could be
we're still trying to figure out. There was a point in the pandemic when we were trying to figure out if masks were good or not, right? I mean, we had our own.
No, there was a period where,
hey,
honestly,
you shouldn't wear masks. Oh, you should wear. I mean, that happened, but the fact that people were still peddling that, hey, 9 months ago they said you shouldn't wear a mask when they already redacted and fixed it is ridiculous, right? So I mean that at that point, something that wasn't misinformation became misinformation, and how do we stop that from spreading?
And then, like you said, right, like the elephant leans and the mind follows, right? So
yep.
So it's there are a lot of it will be an interesting study, like the psychology of the world on this interconnected world, facilitated by technology, how our brains, how it's turning our brains to mush. I guess that's really what it is. We won't get to solve it tonight. I think we have gone long enough. I know that everybody expected the conclusion of this episode to be like, and this is how you fix it. We don't have an answer for it, but at least we talked about it and we can see where the problems are. So that's instead of just shouting in the vacuum, right? So that helps. All right. And with that, I think that's all what we have for you today on this very, very interesting and contemporary technology episode of OffHeap. So with that, this is Freddie signing off.
I'm signing off. Happy 2020, everyone.
2020.
2021. No, let's not do that again.
Oh, I do that all the time now. Like I have to write 2020.
Yeah. Oh wait, that 0 can become a 1. I just have to draw a line through it.
Yeah,
it's fine.
It's Josh signing off.
Michael signing off. Happy New Year, and follow us on Twitter at OffHeap.
Yeah. We are not blocked.
Oh, that's right. No, the one that my daughter sent me about 2021 is like, now when they check your ID, if you're a legal age to drink, then the thing they have to do is that it starts with a 1.
Oh wow, yeah. Well,